6:30.
Lord.
We need to review and accept our agenda. I don't believe we have anything to change or add to it. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
You have no friends.
I know, I feel like we're sinking.
We're also So, any discussion regarding the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining? Thank you. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. Did you want to talk to us? No? Okay. All right,
She's here
just checking.
for later.
Okay, just checking. So I'm going to open it up to our legislators who are here tonight. We have Butch Shaw, Stephanie Jerome, and Peter Conlon with us this evening. Hello and welcome.
Hi.
So can I open it up to let you talk to us? You want to?
Sure.
Okay,
We can talk about
whatever you want,
okay.
as long as it's educational related.
So, do you want to refresh on what happened last session?
Sure.
So, three major things. So, just so you know, I'm on the Commerce and Economic Development Committee in the State House, Butch is on Corrections and Institutions, and Peter is on the Education Committee. So, Peter is our expert.
In this room.
Excellent. All right.
Thrown it to Peter.
Yeah, but Butch and I can chime in also. And so last session at the end, sort of two major things happened. There was the Ethnic Studies Act, and then also the lead bill and lead. What's that was called? It's called lead testing bill, and. The Ethnic Studies Act, it says there'll be a study going on, and then there'll be a working group will be presenting to the Agency of Education in 2021 with standards to go forward with the curriculum.
Recommended standards that the state board then have to act on.
Okay.
So they've been charged with basically to do something, come up with a recommendation that then goes to somebody else. It's kind of a long, involved process.
And then the lead bill, my understanding is they're underway with all their testing, and that they've been pretty good, right?
Yeah, so we got a report today for those of you who don't remember the discussion, but it was basically we funded and mandated that all child care centers, all home child care, and all public and private schools be tested for lead in drinking water. The process has been going as expected. The cost has been as expected. And the results have really been as expected, about finding elevated levels in, I think, like 20% of the taps or the outlets. So some have lead, some don't. And it really confirms the suspicion that if there is elevated lead levels in a school, it is generally due to out-of-date fixtures. It's not a systemic problem. And so, the remediation process has been going on. A lot of schools, a lot of solutions are just shutting down a sink.
And then as far as my committee, my committee is really focused on workforce development, the adult side of, but also career and technical education. And I think the figures vary, but my understanding of the figures that are given to us are about 3,000 kids who graduate from high school every year in Vermont who do not have a plan after high school. And so those are the kids that we're looking at trying to go on to get, after they finish school, getting them to do certifications and go on for additional training so that they can go into some more higher skilled, better paying jobs. And that's moving, because as you know, Vermont needs workers. Another figure is that we have 10,000 jobs that need to get filled every year, and that we need to look at these people who are not working or need to work at a higher level to get them to fill these jobs. So from the Commerce Department, the Commerce Committee, that's our focus on education, looking at career and technical teaching.
So we're, I'm going to set corrections in the institution committee. So we do corrections policy as the title states, but we also do the capital construction, the state bonding bill, So we're responsible for state buildings, state property, and miscellaneous things that need funding, like the lead funding bill. The school bill, the funding for that is a combination of general fund money and capital money to do those repairs. Also, we're funding a program for adult career technical education to get adults back into retrained and back into the workforce for careers that are meaningful to them. And we do some of that funding also. And that's where we're at right now in committee. We're trying to help Appropriations Committee with the General Fund Budget Adjustment Act. We finished that up this afternoon for them, advising them on the various areas that we take care of in our committee on the policy side. And so we did that today. We have been hearing a lot about the corrections issues that some that were brought to light by an article in 7 Days newspaper, and then since has blossomed out into other publications regarding some issues with prison rape in Chittenden. And we're learning, and we already knew, but now we're being reaffirmed that that's happening in all of our facilities, whether it's male and female, or male and male, female and female. It's a wide variety of things. It's been a pretty dry 2 weeks for me, but they've had a lot, and that's not a lot to do with your business, but it's important information to know. And we are the committee that did at one time do school construction funding, and it's still in our purview, and we haven't done anything with it, so you can ask.
So school construction, which Butch was just talking about, is very topical right now. There was a big 6-minute long feature today on Vermont Public Radio about what is looked to potentially $500 million in sort of pent-up demand for construction projects across the state by one survey. Most people who kind of watch it think that's kind of underestimating when you figure South Burlington alone is $210 million they're going to float a bond. So a lot of that represents the fact that 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, we stopped providing state aid to school construction. It used to be, if you were doing a construction project, not a maintenance project, but a construction project, the state would kick in 30%. So I'm up in the Middlebury area. When we built the middle school, for example, back in the 90s, 30% of that was covered by the state. There was so much demand for that, and the state went so far in the hole on that they just put a moratorium on it back in about 2007. And that's why you really haven't seen a lot of school construction since then. So there's a lot of attention on this. I think since there's been so much school district unification, that's brought a higher level of evaluation of school buildings as regional boards have looked to see what they've got, as they've been able to hire sort of professional buildings and grounds people to look and see what they have. All of a sudden, people are recognizing that there's a lot of need out there. You know, our buildings were all built in the 60s or earlier, and they're all reaching the end of their useful life, basically, without getting some money for them. So that's a big issue. It's an issue without a solution at this point, but it's got a much bigger implication in, for example, if you look at if South Burlington passes their $210 million bond, their bond payments just get part of their budget. Their budget is funded by the state education fund. And the state education fund isn't just local homestead property tax, it's a lot of other taxes. So the pressure, the upward pressure on the fund means upward pressure on everybody's taxes. So we really share a lot more of these costs than you would think. Often a bond is portrayed as a strictly local cost issue. Really isn't. Some of that cost gets spread out to everybody. Then we get into issues of equity. Some communities can float a $210 million, approve a $210 million bond. Others can't pass a $26 million bond. So that's a big issue that we're wrestling with, that we don't have a solution to. So that's one issue. We're also, in the Education Committee, we received in December a big study that will go toward how we count equalized pupils. Right now, a pupil, depending on a certain category, might get counted as a 1.2 or a 0.46 if it's a pre-K or just a standard elementary school student, so 1. So we had basically a scientific study done by the University of Vermont looking at the weights, the correlation between poverty and additional costs for services, and how those weights should change. It's a very complex study. It's got a lot of repercussions. I personally don't think anything's going to come of it this year. It's a little too big for us to really act on dramatically, but it certainly lays the foundation for a relook at how we do it. And for those of you who have seen this weighting study or are going to get a copy of it or want to see it, it's on various state websites. In the back, it's got the list of winners and losers, but it's really, it's just a snapshot in time based on the conditions in FY18. So I'm on the board of the Addison Central School District. I went for looking for our schools in the section that talks about population density, with a factor meaning that if it's a rural area, it costs more to educate, so you get a higher count. Didn't see any of our schools there, but that's because we had already unified, and they were looking at us as a larger district. So it's for illustration purposes only. Anyway, so we're digging into that. That's a big issue. There's a lot of things we're dealing with right now is trying to take some of the initiatives that we foisted upon all of you and make sure they're going well and without coming up with something big and new.
Thank you.
Act 173 is sort of the restructuring of special education funding. That's a 5-year implementation, so it's not hitting the schools yet. There's some bumps and starts with that. Part of it is the Agency of Education's had some issues with staffing and capacity to do their part and do the on-the-ground training for schools to adopt better special ed practices. We're working our way through that with the help of the state board. And this weighting study will actually play into that because it looks a lot at how to weight kids who probably are going to need extra supports. But again, another complex one. Pre-K is another thing that we are trying to make better, depending on how you look at it. But again, we're not trying to start anything new and big, but trying to adjust what we have and make it work better.
Some questions. Oh, Butch, did you
Well, I'd
answer?
just like to, before you start with questions, so I'd like to go back to Peter's discussion about the capital debt that we have, so that, we all met with the superintendents this past fall, and we had a very long discussion about school construction funding, and I was able to talk with superintendents, but I didn't have all the right numbers in front of me, so I couldn't talk with some sort of accuracy. But I can a little better today. If Peter was right, we had about over $90 million debt that we owed in 2009, 2010 to the various schools that have done school construction. And there's a difference between school construction and school maintenance, and I'll get into that a little later. We had not made any payments on that debt in 4 years. So we started paying it off finally in 2010. About 2016 and maybe 17, we finally paid that debt back. So then the pressure started again to start funding school construction. Today, as of the end of June, actually, our total state long-term debt, tax-supported debt is $627 million.
Is how much?
$627 million. That's general obligation bonds, which capital bonds are general obligation bonds. This year's payment will be $77.8 million towards that debt.
Paid by the school
Right?
districts. That's paid by the school districts, you mean?
That's paid out of the general fund.
Oh, okay,
Paid
gotcha.
out of the general fund. So the problem with that is this year we'll borrow the next 2 years we'll borrow $132 million. So our payments aren't covering our borrowing right now. So the capital authorization, we're looked at by the Capital Debt Affordability Committee, which is a whole bunch of really good financial people in Montpelier. we're authorized to spend so much money every 2 years. And in 2011, we were authorized about $185 million in a 2-year plan. This year, these past 2 years, we were down to $132 million of authorization. And we know that we're going to lose in the next 2 years $14 million of that $132 million to be authorized. Our debt to population ratio is way too high. We almost lead the nation in that category. It's good to lead the nation in some things, but that's not a good category. And we have between that and the obligations we owe on teachers' retirement and public employees' retirement funds has caused us to lose rating with the bonding agencies. So as we lose rating with the bonding agencies, our cost of borrowing goes up. And in a strange quirk of fate, when we borrow money, capital money, our bonds, our bond rating is really, really good. So buyers pay a premium for our bonds, and that premium comes back to the state and then put back into the capital fund. 2 years ago, we had bond premiums of around $10 million. This year, we'll be lucky to have any bond premium because of that lowering of the bond rating. So, in this, I have the projections out to 2030. We'll do a little better by reducing our borrowing. At this rate, actually, our capital debt then, let me say this, will only be $699 million. Compared to what it is today, that's really good, but we're not borrowing as much money. But our bonds,
That's total debt, not just
No.
leftover school debt.
no. This is total general obligation bonds. Yeah, thank you. But that year our payment will be $107 million. So, as we obviously, but if we stay on the trajectory that we're on, we're never going to catch up. And one of the goals of the current speaker is to go to, and the current treasurer is to go with a pay-go system. So if we're going to build something, we're going to pay for it, and without bonding for it. So that was one of the goals. And Peter alluded to that report that came out today on school construction needs. And I will remind you that school construction is different than school maintenance. Back in the day, we paid, like Peter said, we paid about 30% of the school construction costs, but it was 30% of the eligible costs. So a lot of costs that were covered when we were building and adding on the school were not covered, not eligible for. You'll remember this. They actually had a whole department within the Agency of Education that took care of this. Kathy Kogan, you may remember. She was a whiz at this, but it was not, if you have a $100 million project, you were not guaranteed $30 million state aid. It might have been as well as $20 million. So it was just eligible costs. We didn't build things like kitchens, we didn't fund gymnasiums, we didn't fund multi-purpose centers, just the educational piece of the building. So there is a lot of pressure right now to do something with school construction and making money available to many of the districts. As Peter said, the construction piece up in South Burlington is scary because it will land in the education fund and we'll all be part of that. But as you can see, last year our requests in the capital bill were somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 million, and we funded around $70 million worth of those requests. So we're in a kind of pinch, crunch time. I'm waiting for the Ed Committee to come up with a funding stream.
Well, I mean, what is interesting is that, Butch is talking about general obligation bonds, and the state has a limit and a cap, but we can float $500 million in what are called moral obligation bonds by school districts, and there's no, that I know of, there's no sort of lever that shuts it down, other than, because a moral obligation bond basically means that the district can't end up paying it, the state will back it.
But we may not have any money to back.
Right. I wonder at a certain point if somebody won't say, just no more bonding, period.
It would be backed up by our reserve funds, which we're required to have 5% of the budget has to be in reserve. That's where it would be backed up. But if you were not first in line, that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm gonna open it up to questions. Derek, did you have a question?
Two. One was, Peter, you said that you didn't think there was going to be any big bite on new projects or new ideas, but the governor outlined the idea of after-school programs, I guess statewide, and really pushing on some kind of security for students after school. So we don't have latchkey kids, we have activities and things for them to do. He put a 5-year timeline on it. Other people have come out pretty critical of that, saying that should be done on a much quicker 2-year timeline maybe, but that would be a big bite.
Yes, and
Right?
I apologize for leaving that off. That hasn't yet hit the education committee. I don't know.
Does it have to go through the education committee?
I'm not, probably if it's, say after school, the word school's in there, all of a sudden that would trigger it.
Right.
And we have yet to see a bill on it. I think it will come to our committee. The question, of course, is funding. The talk right now is that it would get funded by proceeds from the tax and regulate marijuana market. That, just setting that up would probably take 2 years before the revenue would exist to create the after-school program. So I think maybe that's why a 5-year timeline was looked at.
Is there any possibility of collaboration with mental health in terms of, looking at primary prevention as a component of that?
It's not even starting to be baked yet. So, once we have, I'm sure as the development goes for a full plan, we talk about the intersection of mental health and kids and education all the time.
Yeah, it's a big one.
There's a bill, this time of year, a lot of bills come in. In fact, I've got a sampling of the bills for you, a group of bills in just the past couple of days that are
Proposed.
education. So there's a bill called Community Schools Program, Community Schools, and that's bringing the community resources into schools. Not funded by schools, but within the schools, so it'll be like social services, mental health services,
Yes.
health services, many services within the school and making the school.
Multiple funding sources?
Yeah, I can't speak of the whole thing, but
Sure.
I had a conversation with the creator of the bill the other day, and it's a really
Great.
interesting model, and it would open the schools up, keep the schools open long days. It would make them more of a community center.
Mm-hmm.
Many functions within the school and bringing those services to where the people are, I think, essentially.
I have experience with that. We did a community school model in my last district, and health center, dental center, after-school program, before-school program, whole bit.
Was it success?
There are many ways in which it was a success. There were multiple funding sources. There are many ways in which it was a success. The partnering was successful. Ultimately, did it result in increased academic achievement for students in poverty? We found that it did not. It actually continued the tracking model, so you have to be careful about that. But did it provide health care services to kids who might not otherwise access it? Mental health services, dental services, it absolutely did.
So to Derek's question on the governor's proposal for
The after-school stuff, yeah.
we'll hear more about that Tuesday. The governor's address is Tuesday, and at that time, I think we'll hear his outline. It may not be the legislature's outline, but we'll hear his outline for that
Okay.
Tuesday.
It's been positively received by all parties.
Everybody's in favor. It's just
Right.
how we get there.
Right.
For those of us who already have after-school programs set up, I realize this is early on in the conversation, but how would that affect us? I mean, all of our elementary schools currently have an after-school
I
program.
actually thought of that right away, because to me, it just sounds like you're a step ahead. You've got.
That's us.
So much,
If you-
that's right, you've got so much in place
Well-
already.
Right.
I would imagine it could only affect you positively.
Okay,
Right.
well,
I agree.
okay,
Money-wise.
yeah.
I didn't hear the governor.
Let's just hope regulation-wise it doesn't hurt us.
Right, so
Okay,
is
Dan.
it Century 21 funded?
Right.
No.
No,
Okay.
no,
No, we have been in the past, but we're not currently.
right.
But we do access subsidies, and we have a reserve fund.
So his proposal does include a task force to do this and get it with a timeline. And we heard that last Thursday, or whenever the state of the state was. So we'll know more after Tuesday. We'll know more a week from Tuesday, and a week from after that, when the committee gets a bill, there is a bill.
Something to watch.
We'll know a lot more.
Yeah, and, you know, there's a lot of enthusiasm for it, there's a lot of enthusiasm to beating that 5-year timeline.
Yeah, yeah. And more so, I think there's a tendency to think of after-school program for very young children as the target. My understanding is that it's K-12.
It is.
Because we've got a
It's needed
whole
K-12.
middle school, high school population that there are some traditional after-school activities, and such as sports and theater and music in this school, but there's still a whole range of students that are not scooped up with that are left hanging.
It's based
that-
on a model from Iceland that they
Right.
They changed so many of these social patterns, the negative social patterns and they were able to, from my understanding,
Yep.
very successful.
Yeah. I like those Nordic models, said Mr. Larson.
Bill, you had a question?
Oh, I have a bunch of questions.
Okay, get one.
Just one?
To start.
Okay, we'll start. Staff, I want to go back to the workforce development thing in which you said 35,000 jobs were in the state are open.
So the number is 10,000. So when the Department of Labor tells us that there's 10,000 jobs available every year. And so we need to we have a shortage of workers. Of 10,000.
Skilled workers.
The question,
Well, all workers.
All workers.
All workers.
the question becomes, based on labor projections as to what these jobs are and how many people we need in each category, except for 3 or 4 categories that have health services, the rest are very low-paying jobs.
No, it's not actually true. They need, my understanding now is that the highest demand jobs are in construction industry, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, and tourism.
Yeah, well,
Hospitality, yeah.
the question becomes, what are we doing to get some jobs, some high-paying jobs?
So are you saying, what are we getting to get more jobs in the state? Or are we doing to fill
Well,
the existing jobs?
If we're going to attract people, we have to offer them jobs that have livable wages.
Right. So, you know, people talk about this on all different sides of this, but my understanding is that the jobs are available. I was just listening to a piece that the Secretary of Commerce and the Administration Secretary had done an interview about a week ago, and according to them, you know, there's high-paying jobs available they're looking for engineers, you know, as well as construction workers. They're looking for, you know, laborers as well as primary care physicians. And it is across the board where Vermont needs skilled workers and some skilled laborers and others are highly educated professionals. It is across the board. So I think, you know, we're talking about creating jobs. We are creating jobs, and there are jobs that are there are businesses that are expanding. So it's this balance of trying to. We want more people to move to Vermont. We also want to work with the people that are living here currently and get them the proper training and certifications to take up the job.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
I mean, we're in a funny point in time where, you know, before we can attract more employers, we need to be able to fill the jobs that we have, because no one's going to come here if they can't find a workforce to do the work that they want to bring with them.
I sat in a Fremont Care Board at a presentation this afternoon that I was lucky enough to be able to listen to, and it was about our dire need for primary care physicians and how do we get them into our state? How do we lure them into Vermont? How do we get them to or if they're doing their residencies here, how do we get them to stay and come to our rural communities? So that's
a big question.
It's a big thing. And then I was in a tour. Another part of my day was there was a hearing about tourism. There's a proposal to want to increase the funding by $500,000 to add more advertising, to get more tourists to the state. And, you know, these can be some can be very high-paying jobs in the tourism industry, and so they have a shortage of people to work for them. And of course, the ski areas have a shortage of seasonal workers too. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But I do believe there are a lot of jobs that are here. You know, Castleton University is doing a great job right now of creating a child care education center to train and educate more people, become early ed teachers and child care providers. And they're also expanding their nursing programs in southern part of the state because we have such a shortage of nurses.
So Bill, I listened today to the Brattleboro retreat. You know, many of you read in the paper about the troubles they're having down there. They're threatening closure, which they're not going to close, and other things. And one of the things that are adding to their budget pressures down there is they have empty beds. There's a lot of reasons they have empty beds, but one of the reasons is they don't have enough staff. So they have resorted to hiring traveling nurses, which is a really expensive proposition for them. They pay their pay rate for nurses is compatible to all the other pay down in that area. Might be $1 or $2 less, might be $1 or $2 more, but it's compatible with all the other facilities down in that. They just can't find people to fill these positions. People, they're recruiting in New Hampshire and Massachusetts also. So they are now, one of the big budget pressures they have is they just can't find people. They have beds, they have a facility, just can't find them. We can fill the beds, but we can't find people to take care of the people. So that leads to Stephanie's piece about retraining, job training, adult education, those types of things. So there's an example of some, it's in healthcare, that's for sure, but it's also in mental health care. So there's an example of lack of employees, lack of people to do the job is creating a dangerous situation for the retreat and the people that are on the retreat.
Yeah. Do we have an exodus, and how big is it if we have an exodus?
Do we have an exodus of population?
Yes.
Depends what report you're listening to. It's
Okay.
I can tell you. It seems like one of the last things I did hear is that if people are leaving, it's lower wage earners, and then we also have a larger increase of higher wage earners are coming into the state. I just saw a report from United Van Lines that Vermont was one of the most popular, was their highest, the top of the list of Vermont places to move to. I mean, using that report. So it's a tough one. The reports are all over the place.
If you trust Art Wolf, who's a noted Vermont economist, he would say that there are more people leaving Vermont than there has, younger people, than there had been previously. Not an exodus, but just more than has been traditional.
In one of the reports that I read, and I think Art might have been involved in that, we were the only state in the nation that had negative, we had negative population gain in the last, there was a time period. We were down 400 people over a span of 10 years. 10 years, yeah. So it's
yeah, it's not growing.
You suggested, or at least I heard, that we're having more high-income people and more low-income people.
My
Or
understanding
lesser.
is that the people moving into the state are higher income people, and the people who are leaving the state are lower wage earners.
Okay.
Could be a question of age.
I know it, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It could be more are retirees moving in?
we think so. I think so.
Okay. So I just want to go around the table. We are running low on time, so I just want to be able to go around the table. If any of you have a question for them, I want to make sure that you get a chance to ask it.
I have one.
Okay?
I am wondering if you all are aware, I guess especially Peter, right? Around what's happening with pre-K and childcare subsidy. Can you do you know what I'm asking? Can you?
I know the situation.
Okay,
Not
can
sure
you
the question.
explain what happened? And I guess let me quickly fill you guys in. So pre-K, there are some childcares that also can do pre-K, and so pre-K money follows those children, and it used to be that families could also get a subsidy. So once they got to 26 hours, you could get a full-time childcare subsidy. And all of a sudden, it's changed, and so now if a family goes to childcare for 32 hours, but their child's in pre-K for 10 of those hours, they're now getting a part-time subsidy, which is a big loss to families, and it also costs childcare and centers
And
lots of money.
what's that causing is families now have to choose, basically they withdraw from pre-K because they can't afford the loss of subsidies.
Right.
And it's a sudden change that happened with like a 3-week notice right before Christmas.
And it's not like it's not a cash
Right.
cow
Allison
for
and-
childcare, because childcare, right, already is a loss. So
This is, this is a somewhat new issue.
It is.
That really we've just.
We don't know where it came from,
Yeah.
why it
Yeah.
I
surfaced.
just had my first conversation about it today.
Yeah,
Good.
We thought the system was basically if you attended a private pre-K, you got the voucher. And if you
Right,
attended
they
a
were
public pre-K,
stacked, and now they're commingled.
Yeah, and I know
Yeah.
that it may especially impact what's going on in Whiting. I'm not quite sure if you know.
Whiting did have some families impacted, and again, we had a family withdraw from pre-K in order to keep their subsidy, which is anti the law. I mean, the whole purpose.
But it also points out one of the big flaws with the law.
Yes, it
in
does.
that, basically, if you're in an area where a state-funded pre-K program is provided, and or even if it's subsidized by the public school, and it's 20 hours a week, and you're a working parent, well, it doesn't help you out anyway.
correct.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Whereas a program like Whiting could help out that family because it's all in one setting, and then this new twist has hurt them.
We'll keep an eye on that.
Thank you.
That's an important issue.
Yes, thank you.
Two different funding streams too.
Yeah.
for that.
Yes.
That
Well,
could be
that's
a
part of the problem with the law.
Exactly. That's the problem, right.
But you're right, 2 different funding streams, 2 different agencies.
Well, and ironically, we had hoped to try to combat that problem by having what we would say a push-in service, where we would provide staff into the childcare to provide the pre-K. But the 2 funding sources were at odds as to who should get the money and how they should get the money, and the families were the ones who were struggling. So we had to change the model this year to only a pullout, and now unless they hit that 26.5 plus our 10, they don't get what they need for their families.
And the on-the-ground, somewhat of an absurdity of how that works, literally in the building.
Yeah.
is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Do you-
Conversation, 2 different agencies trying to do the same thing but not together.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
It feels like they're competing for funds.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense of like why that all of a sudden happened? Because
So yeah, this new problem, I don't, could have been a rule change or how one agency decided to interpret the rule. I really don't know. But we'll find out.
thank you.
Doesn't this suggest an equity problem?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
Within the whole pre-K program, there's serious equity problems.
So we do have some visitors for the task force, if I can.
Yep. Any other questions from our board members though first? No? So I only have one. Sorry. We currently, and I'm gonna ask this for Devin because he asked the governor and he didn't know.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you guys because maybe you might know or can figure it out. We have a tech ed program here that seems to be very vibrant this year with a new tech teacher. Yeah, he's really good. And he had asked the governor when the governor came to visit how he might be able to access some of the career monies that go to like Stafford and Hannaford and all that, so that we can would allow us to be able to teach our own kids here those same trades. And so the question is how do we do that? And because right now there seems to be you can't touch my tech money because it only goes to the tech centers.
That's true.
So,
So-
right. So the question for me to you is he talking about the adult tech ed money?
No, he's talking about student at this point. Student.
Probably Perkins and State.
Perkins, yeah.
Regional Tech Center.
It's a region, yeah.
not sure how much Perkins money goes into direct instruction of high school students. We just had this conversation on our board because we were alerted by the Hannaford Career Center that the tuition was going up 23%.
Wow. Did we know
It's in
that
our
one?
budget too.
Okay, yeah. Wow.
And so my question was, well, doesn't Perkins money offset that? And I was told it does not.
Okay.
So, you know, whether you're paying for them here or you're paying for them there, you're paying for them. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that that magic pot of money actually exists.
Okay.
It's an interesting conversation because in my committee, they talk about trying to get career technical education into middle school, which is exactly what you're doing here, right? With this teacher.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So he's just trying to keep our kids here if we can keep them here, because we have all of the equipment, we have all of the abilities to do it, so let's do it.
For that program, yeah.
For that program and keep it
Huge
full-time.
argument.
Yeah, so you're now competing
Yeah.
with a career center
Right.
that counts on those students for their ADM.
Exactly, exactly.
But if they're maybe they are at their maximum capacity.
Well, right, how can we, is there a way for us to be able to attract kids here? You know, from other schools, if they're full?
We're all in competition for kids, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Mhm.
And if we have that
We're a
over somebody.
dwindling resource.
It is.
There's a
All
lot
right.
of states.
Well, anyway, so if you could keep that in your purview,
Yeah.
for that'd be great. All right,
There's a lot
awesome.
of states that have comprehensive programs where you do have both the technical and the academic in the same building, so I don't think that's an impossible thing to do.
It's actually what Stafford does.
Well, there are people now advocating that all tech centers should become independent.
Right.
Yep.
Which, you know, to me is the wrong way to go. You want an integrated program where there's
Right.
seamless
Right.
between tech ed and regular ed.
Yeah, I don't think
How do
you want
call it? Two
to.
separate things.
Absolutely. Well, I really want to thank you for coming and visiting with us. If you
Yeah.
have questions about, you know, education or whatever, you know where to find us.
Yeah, and
So
equally,
we're happy
equally,
to-
you know where to find us.
Yeah, we seem to be cutting edge, and we will continue to help you be cutting edge as long as it doesn't hurt us.
So Laura, I do want to say one thing that I said to Jeannie
Yeah.
before we started. I'm really proud that you folks are stepping up to the plate and taking care of the facilities throughout the district. I understand that you've stepped up and are going to fix the entrance here at this school.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
huge thing. That's a huge thing. Makes me proud because I can sit in my committee and say, my district's fine. They're doing what they need to do to keep their facilities in really acceptable condition. May not be what you would like to see 100%, but you're not running around with, I saw a picture today of up in the Northeast Kingdom, black mold all over the floor.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no.
Thank you, Brenda.
And so it's nice to hear that you
Making me
made that
hot.
commitment to your students, your employees, and the buildings. So I thank you. I want to thank you for that. That's really important.
Obviously, this year, I've been in the legislature for 3 years, it's my fourth, and I introduced my first bill ever. And it's a very simple bill that just says that allowable construction costs from a school budget be paid for year to year rather than through a bond would not count against you on your, if you're approaching the excess
Yeah.
tax
Oh,
threshold.
I have a
Oh,
copy.
good idea.
great.
Great
Awesome.
idea. Mm.
Awesome.
Or it should be the end of the
Cool.
Okay, well, here, I'll leave these
Yeah,
with you.
you can do that,
Okay.
absolutely.
you.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, feel free to contact us. Really
I think that your, you know, that
Awesome.
threshold
Well, thank you very much.
per pupil cost.
Okay,
Can't think of
so
what that
our
would be.
next thing,
saying, right?
do we want to do budget next?
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna move on to fiscal year 21 budget and district warning final approval. Brenda, that would be you.
Okay, so, here are a bunch of copies. You can take one and pass it around. There is no change in equalized pupils yet. I did talk to, Friday, the, agency was at the state meeting for Vermont school business officials. And they have recognized that there are still or continue to be problems with the, what they call the SLDS collection, which is what feeds into equalized pupils. And they're still going to be running those numbers, but they're not coming until mid-next week. So that is too late for us to really do anything. So what I'm passing out today is the same thing that we talked about last week. I did add a couple, so none of that changes in the form that you have in front of you, except the very far right-hand column. I added a column for you. So as we discussed last week, the tax commissioner by statute has to make some estimates to the legislature on what the yield should be. And so I wanted to provide you with the information that the tax commissioner used in making the recommendation for the yield, so that you could see how that kind of compares to us. We talked about it verbally last week. I told you these numbers verbally, but now I just put them on the same form for you.
The state average, right.
Yes.
So I have one question.
Sure.
So if equalized pupils change after we approve this tonight, that is just bonus for us, right?
If they go up.
Well,
If it
yeah,
changes
if they
the
go
right
up,
way.
that's right. Well, I'm assuming that they will, because this just doesn't make any sense.
I am assuming they will go up as well, because I found 39 students. So
Okay.
I am assuming they're going to go up, but I do have to caution you, it's a double-edged sword. Because while it's nice that they will go up in the equalized pupils, your share of central office assessments will be adjusted as well.
Okay.
And so, but at this point, I don't know what else we can do. We can't wait another week.
No.
So, there's no change from last time, and like I said, I just provided this information for you. Here is the draft warning. I think you also had that last time. I would ask you to definitely read it.
Yeah, we didn't look at it, actually.
And then the other thing is, Barry, one of the things that you had asked about was the last two slides. So if you look at the next, if you skip by those 2 pages, I think one of the questions that you had was, tell me a little bit more about the Rutland-Northeast assessment, understanding that it's an assessment and you have representation, but as a whole board, you don't necessarily know everything that goes into it. So the first column is kind of, again, this isn't new information, but it is the budget for the central office services. And again, just to remind you what that includes the superintendent, curriculum, information technology, business office, all of special education, and all transportation. So that budget is going up 7.8%. That budget receives some revenues from the state. Most of it is special education reimbursements and some transportation aid. And when you subtract those revenues, the assessments are going up 4.52%. So I think the question that you had asked, Barry, was, well, why did those budgets go up 7.8%? Like, what were the budget drivers of that? So if you go to this page, the next page, there's just 2 ways to look at it. When I say the word object, that's what you are buying. When I say the word function, that's the department it belongs to. So when you look at the first column on the left, you'll see that salaries and benefits are approximately 5% of that 7.8. That's salaries and
6%.
6%.
No, 5. You're right, it's 5. I'm
I
sorry.
know. Thank you all. I rely on
Yeah.
you for the small numbers. That's across all departments. That's salaries and benefits across all departments. If you look on the right side, you'll see that direct instruction and student support is all special education related services. Instructional staff support is media and information technology. General administration, superintendent, school administration is the special education administrative cost. Fiscal services is business office. Facilities is just the RNESU building itself. Transportation, of course, is busing. So that's, in each of these, each of those departments have salaries and benefits, purchase services, fuel, heat, electricity, all of those.
So what we're recommending is that you approve the budget tonight and that you approve the ballot warning tonight.
Okay, so I need a motion.
Extras, Bill?
Yeah. we can do
Yep.
it. Is there a motion?
Yes.
No, second.
And Derek is seconding, okay. Any discussion?
Maybe on a related matter, maybe I'll wait for later, but it was more around how we're going to present or the material that we're going to present with respect to the budget, not on voting.
Next meeting?
Right, yeah, that would, I think we'll push that to later if you
Okay.
don't mind,
No,
just
I
based
don't
on
mind.
time.
Yep.
Okay, so, did you have a question, Lee? Did I see your arm? Okay, sorry.
Okay.
So, we did talk about this at length last week during our meeting, but if anybody has any other questions or concerns at this point, I should hear them now.
Can I ask just for clarification?
Yep.
Did the motion say to approve a budget in the amount of $20,377,427?
It sure did.
It
Yes,
did.
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did.
Thank
Did, I
you.
muttered the last part.
Thank you.
You shouldn't mutter, no.
I heard it, though. I just
Yeah.
want to project it for you.
All right, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of approving that big number that Brenda just said, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining? We have a budget.
And now you wanna-
Congratulations.
Right.
Do you
so-
have one to be signed?
I do.
Good.
Okay,
Because they're both here.
it's for,
20 million? You got it.
right. So then we just need to look at the warning, the 2-page warning. If anybody, did anybody see anything glaringly wrong with it, dates or anything like that?
Please note, your annual meeting is February 26th.
Right, at 6:30 in the auditorium. We have to approve this as well, right?
Yes, you do.
So I need a motion.
I move that we
So
accept
moved.
the ballot.
Okay, and are you, you're
Seconding
seconding,
it.
Myra? Okay. Any discussion regarding the warning? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the warning for the school budget, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining? Okay, we will sign that and get that ready to go.
And Charlene, we need you to sign it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
we-
Oh, you want me to
yeah.
sign this one?
Yes,
Okay.
now, please.
All right.
There's a separate second page.
Okay, and then, just so we can keep moving, consent agenda, can I get an motion?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, no discussion, so all those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, consent agenda passed. Sorry, I just want to get us to the next piece. So are we moving into, task force now?
Yes, you
All
can
right,
turn
so
it over to,
Allison, can I turn it over to you? Okay, it's all yours.
I did share by email if you want to
Thank
point out.
you. I did a PowerPoint for tonight because there was a lot to sort of, bring together. I wanted to refocus us coming out of the break since we missed our December meeting. Which, by the way, everybody, I was going to surprise you with all these baked goods in individual boxes. So I got the canceled note, and you should have seen my counters were like full of cookies and so right? It's the thought that counts.
Yeah.
And I could not reciprocate that this evening, and I apologize. But I did.
Next time.
I know, it's
Okay.
kind of like, I swear, I baked these thumbprint turtle cookies with homemade caramel. No, like, I got the call and I was like, oh, Jean, that's such a shame. Because I really wanted you guys to feel just how grateful, I'm excited to be working with you, and I'm so grateful for all that you do. And I always look at model behaviors, right? So, anyways, just know that it was there. And the weather just didn't agree with me, unfortunately. So happy New Year.
Same to you.
We did end up doing, so basically the PowerPoint, it is going to be a point of reference for all of you. I didn't print it. It was more so that I could get my thoughts in order, and then you guys could have something to reference coming out of the meeting.
And you do have a copy by email, in your email.
It's a copy by email. Specifically, there's a couple of things I wanted to cover tonight. I know it's really hard to get back into a rhythm. So where we sort of left off was, okay, we definitely need to have intentional community engagement. Instead of just planning some events, we decided that we would maybe ask the community, like, how would you prefer to give input, right? There were some ideas that were thrown away just to refresh memory. Focus group, would it be better just to invite people to the working sessions that we have here the third Wednesday? There was a recommendation from one of our ambassadors about, hey, I participated in a phone forum. Would people be interested in doing that? So we were just trying to sort of get a feel for
you know, what the community would be open to and be more willing to participate in, for one. For two, the other purpose of that exercise, everything that we do here as a group is really to get us into sort of, it presents an opportunity for us to work together. I asked each of you to share those, you know, to reach out to the towns, to share on Facebook. These are all things that I want us to get sort of accustomed to so that we can continue to, you know, work cohesively and really get the word out. So with that survey, we had 41 responses, which is okay. And it was sort of an initial thing that we did. It gives us some input to work with. And I captured each of the questions that we asked in the survey on the deck that was shared. Just to go over them quickly, we did have, it was about 51% of staff members responded, and then about 15% of the community, and about 34% were parent or family, which is kind of a nice sampling. It wasn't just all staff or all parents, so that's good. And it was sort of a good representation of each of the towns. We did have one person from Goshen, which is good. I'll take it. Brandon, you know, there was no one from Whiting that responded, unfortunately. But you know, there was Brandon, Lester, Pittsburgh, and Sudbury. So you know, we did have sort of a sampling from that. I know it's hard to sort of. I can never get this to work. So I said, Jean, I did a PowerPoint. I know I'm not going to get it on the screen. I never can. So I'm just going to talk through it quickly. It seems that people are using Let's Talk. 68% said that's how they like to, you know, sort of provide their feedback to the board. Which, from a communication standpoint, what that tells me is that that's where people are comfortable, and it's kind of a nice place for us to start to drive people. I know we already do it, and it's something that's been in place for a couple of years. So that's why people are more familiar with it. But we could maybe use that as a tool a little bit more, you know, since people are already utilizing it. So it's not really changing any behavior. So that's good. 29% said they would attend a working session that we have scheduled here. So that's a good number. 9.8% said that they would do a forum, which is sort of a low number. Now, some of that might be just that people aren't familiar, but also that tells me that they may not participate. Now again, it's just a sampling, it's 41 people, but it sort of starts to, you know, you start to see patterns, that's all. You know, and then people seem to really like the idea of a focus group. 41% said that they'd be willing to participate in a focus group. And so, you know, it's just an opportunity for us to sort of reflect on that and say, okay, further in this presentation, we're gonna sort of talk about what do we want to do? What do we want to plan? Because here we are, it's almost February already, which is insane. So like, what do we, you know, sort of plan out? We have until, you know, end of May. Do we want to do two opportunities, 3 opportunities? Do we want to try one and see what, you know, what type of input we receive and participation? I'm always about working smart, not hard. You know what I mean? So how do we sort of look at what people told us, what they're willing to participate in, set a date, and then we drive that, you know what I mean, to get people to engage, which is exciting. There were 17 comments, so 41 people responded to the survey. 17 people took the time to actually write, you know, I always leave it like an open-ended. Is there anything you want to communicate today? And I do you guys want me to read those? They're not super long. I can sort of summarize. Do you feel like that's relevant for tonight? Or I can just share the responses and you guys can take the time to do that on your own?
Well, what did you think of them? I mean, are they
Sampling, maybe?
substantive or?
Yeah, I can give a sampling, yes, but some are just misconceptions that we need to continue to sort of, you know, look at. Some are just random, you know, develop a strict policy on weather cancellations, or, you know, right, things that you probably
Don't
heard.
do it.
Right. Okay, here's one. The Blue House in Pittsburgh should be a utilized school building. Well, it is, right? Now, it didn't, right. So, I mean, maybe we just need to tell people that. Maybe it's something.
It's not right now.
It's not.
At the time of the survey it was, but it's not right now.
Oh, dang it. I was like, it is. You know, obviously there's that.
They moved out?
concern about the schools and how the elementary schools will be affected by any change.
Utilized, just leaves the school.
You're getting revenue.
I scrolled down. If the board would truly like to have more community involvement, the date of meetings should be changed so they do not, that was that one. So they don't interfere with any other public meetings. There was one meeting that got changed on a school event, but typically that is the policy. Yeah, nothing groundbreaking. Some people did thank you for your service, which is great. They went out of their way to do that. And dedication to the community and to the schools, which is great. I think we should begin to openly address the ramifications of the decisions that were made 4 to 5 years ago concerning district consolidation, more writing on the wall with the move to 1 5th, 6th class for OCA. So there's still that sort of trickling, we've talked about that, sort of that ripple effect, but it's still there. So, we just need to continue to address it, I think, in healthy ways and try to reinforce why those decisions were made, which is what we're doing. There's some really long ones. I'll just share it with you guys. Nothing groundbreaking, I wouldn't say. Nothing that would really surprise anybody. But what I did find was, again, I'm always looking for that engagement piece. And so, when almost half the people that took the time to do the survey actually take the time to write a comment, they're engaged, so that's good. That's what we want. And so it's always looking at how we leverage that engagement. So John and I did our best to do the poll on the RNESU Facebook page. I don't know if you guys remember, we discussed doing the survey and then also doing, yes, I'm getting hot. But I just can't. I'm metabolism. So we did, poor John, I was like emailing him over and over because I was like, we were going back and forth with the question. Sorry, it's a little bit because Facebook has changed everything, and I could not for the life of me do the poll through the RNESU page on my computer. So after probably 6 hours of pure frustration, and I'm not exaggerating, and John got 8 emails, I was like, maybe I'll try it from my phone, right? And there I go on my phone, and I hit the button, and there it is. And I was like, wow, this is gonna save me so much time. So I was able to post the poll. We got a solid 4 responses, which is, groundbreaking, but still, again, it's good to get into a rhythm, and half said focus group and half said phone forum of the 4 responses. But it does really help to get momentum if you guys are sharing those things and really engaging on Facebook, because we do get good views. People are on Facebook for sure, so it's helpful just to do that. And John, thank you for your assistance with that. It was nice to have a sounding board.
Is that before or after you decided not to run, Joe?
It was before.
Thanks, Al.
I sealed the deal. Oh, man. Yeah, well, anyways, Facebook is very dodgy. They change things very quickly, faster than I can keep up, and I'm on there all the time. So, anyways, so what I wanted to do is take sort of the opportunity to just say to you guys, okay, now that we have this feedback, and I know typically we do breakout sessions. I was thinking for this, because of the time and we have some stuff to cover just as a group, it's probably helpful just to do that, and then we'll get back into a similar rhythm in our next meeting. But based on what we sort of heard, it sounds like there's a couple of different ways that people are most comfortable engaging. One is a focus group, and one is really just coming to one of these working sessions. And some of that is how we position these sessions. We've started to call them more of a working session versus like a board meeting, which hopefully will sound less intimidating. But, if we're looking at the next sort of 5 months and things that we have up and coming that are pivotal for the district, like the budget, or once we have our information back from the architectural assessments of OB/UHS, there's a few things and some milestones that I think we should look at and sort of plan around that, and maybe we do one working session where we really ramp up and tell people this is what we're covering and we really would like you to join, and maybe one separate focus group in that sort of 4 or 5 month period, and have areas of focus. I think that that would be helpful, but I wanted to sort of get your guys' input on that, so that we can set those dates even today, and then we can start to figure out how we get people here. Because all of that takes time, and as we know, time goes very fast. So that's what I wanted to sort of focus on right now. There's other things too, but based on the survey and what we heard, what do you guys? And we had also thrown around some ideas about how we have a presence in the community. We had talked about piloting, having a presence at the schools during pickup. There were just sort of a bunch. This is what I don't want to happen. I don't want it to be a bunch of ideas and then we just don't do anything. So that's why I want to say, okay, if we're going to pilot it, we're going to pilot it at X school and we're going to start on this date. And if we're going to do, an organized community engagement opportunity, we're going to do it on this date and this is what it's going to look like and this is how we're going to do it. So I would like to talk about that now with all of you. Let me know what you think.
So I think that as far as community engagement goes, at least from my purview, I like the idea of us being able to go out and just be wearing our badges so that people know that, when we're at school events and stuff, that they know they can come talk to us. As far as anything else, I'm not sure, being at the school during pickup makes sense because people are just there to pick up their kids and go. But if you wanted to have an actual forum or something like that where people could come, I'm okay with that.
How does everybody else feel about that? And there were some staff members that actually said this might be a good opportunity. I think, Sue, you had said that maybe at school pickup that might be a good opportunity because parents are sort of waiting. No? Oh, maybe
Well, if we're there early, yeah. I mean, if we're there like 10 minutes or 15 minutes early, I suppose that makes sense.
I think when we discussed it as a group, it was like, okay, it's more casual, right? And it's not really intimidating. So that could be a nice opportunity for parents or family members that are picking up their children just to have a casual conversation and not necessarily talk, budget or anything that's sort of more intimidating. So I think that was sort of the idea, right? Yes, right?
Yeah, I think it was just possibility.
Yeah, possibility. And again, these ideas, it's, we're not gonna really know until we know. So it's not gonna, and that's why I think we'd said maybe we try and pilot it in one school, and just see if people wanna talk to us. Maybe it's not welcomed at all and people are just, like you said, in and out. I was thinking of my own experience as a parent. I definitely, when I'm waiting for my child in the doorway, I'm just standing there. I'm talking to other parents. If someone from the school or the board came up and spoke to me, I'd probably talk to them. I don't know. I mean, it's just, well, me, yes, I would. But, that might be a nice opportunity just to have casual conversations with people, how are things going? I'm, Lori from the board. You're hanging out, wondering if there's anything you want to talk to me about. And again, it's just establishing, it's not an opportunity to have an in-depth conversation, it's an opportunity to familiarize people with who you guys are and just have a casual conversation. So, I think I like the idea because it's really, it's not a high, commitment and you just give it a shot. Kind of like when we do community events and we're like, yeah, that one was not, no, we're not going to do that one again. But we do other ones and we're like, yeah, that was really worth our time and we'd like to try it again. So I think that we just start getting out there. Who's in? What do you think? Yeah? Who has availability to even be present at the schools during pickup?
I have a question, Barbara, I'll turn to you as you pick up, and actually Lori too. Are there many parents standing around the school. I'm picturing a parking lot that has to keep moving.
So,
Lothrop doesn't get out of their cars and they don't want you out of your car.
We
They don't
talked
want
about
you out
that,
of the
right?
car.
There's some schools
Yeah.
that they do and some schools, so we'd have to obviously.
It would be
the
like a
schools.
riot if people
they
started
kind of
getting out of
vary.
their cars.
There's parents that get to
At
Nashville
Lothrop.
early and hang around. I'm not one of them. I actually end up arriving around when the buses are leaving, which means I can find a place to park. And my kids are ready to go. But I think, a person, especially like a social person who's on the board and gets there early and chats, it would be a great opportunity. It'd be perfect. Like if Allison moved to our district, for example, if we were kids in Nashville.
No pressure.
It'd be
That might
perfect.
be your district. I mean.
Yeah,
I see when you come, Barbara.
Yeah.
There are, because my bus line is right out front, there are a lot of people that wait, but as soon as their child comes out, they want to go
Yeah.
because they want to beat
The buses, yeah, the buses.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's, I've stood in the same spot for years. They want to beat the bus.
Yeah, so what, okay, based on that, so maybe we shoot for Neshabie, just for fun. And, what time would be an ideal time to arrive there? If someone were to,
To talk to people
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Probably, how long do you want to talk to them for, like 10 minutes? Or I would say maybe 2:20. I mean, kindergarten goes out at exactly, the announcements come on at exactly like 2:34.
Okay.
And we're out.
Yeah, so 2:20. I guess where I'm seeing this going is say we decide to do like a focus group, right? And we say to people, hi, I'm Barbara from the board. We have some interesting things that we're going to be talking about coming up. We've got, an event or a community input session that we're planning, for mid-March. And we're really, really working hard to hear from our community and to be able to engage with people. We have some decisions that we're making as a board and, we really, really value your input. I mean, that's really it. It's not like to go and, dig deep and but it's really just to invite people to engage with us. I guess that would be the message. And we can script it. So you're not going in there and and I know that sounds silly, it doesn't have to be read from a script, but sometimes it's just comfortable to know what you're saying. But I do think these are the opportunities, I think we're just looking for alternative ways to get to people so that they can see you and so that you're visible. And I think that this could be a nice way to do that. I don't know, but I feel like the more that you guys are out there, not just from a parent community standpoint, but also from a staff standpoint. They see, the board, it's just less formal and, I realize it might be a little uncomfortable at first, but I guess I always go back to if you're feeling uncomfortable, how do you think people are feeling coming to a board meeting and sitting in these chairs and trying to tell you what they like or don't like about what's happening in the district, right? So it's really just that opportunity to make that initial contact. So is there anybody that would be willing to do it? Derek, I'm looking at you.
Yeah,
You're all healed up. You're all healed up.
pretty much.
Walk right into Neshabie and talk to a few people.
I can.
Okay. So I'm assuming what I think would be the right line of passage, right, would probably be to have Jean reach out to the principal and just let them know. And maybe, Jean, when you do that, you can CC Derek on that communication. And Derek, you can reply all and just say, I'm going to likely come on Tuesday. And just give everyone a heads up so they don't, and wear your tag and shake some hands.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just invite people to engage. Let them know that we have these working sessions the third Wednesday of every month. And we're really looking for people to come and we want to hear their voice.
I hang out, I do pick up sometimes here at the high school.
Yeah.
And it's the same as Lothrop, that, there's a line, the traffic lines up and they wait for their kids and then they peel off. But there's an opportunity there still. And what I was thinking was, if we had a meeting coming up, an event, that we had a little flyer, I'd walk right along and give one to each car and say, we'd like your feedback. you know, come to this if you can. If you can't, give us a call and let's talk, or text and put that information on you. You know, just boop, 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 on their way out. I mean, it's quick and easy, no necessarily lengthy engagement or anything.
Right.
But,
Do you think that, so I do want to set a date tonight, and I want to plan what that looks like. So we can easily do that. We could also just have something that talks about the third, you know, that sort of starts to brand our third Wednesday.
Yeah,
of
I
the
think
month.
handing out notice about the work sessions on the third Wednesday, these guys have been coming all year and would love, I mean, it's been really beneficial having community members, staff members participate.
Right.
But if it's okay, I would put them in mailboxes.
if we had something like this for,
If you only do the pickup line, you're missing.
They're just like, well, we're glad you go.
Maybe we
Right.
should go home and like fold
That's what
up
happened.
Could do that too.
And they don't
If you
quite
just do the
understand
pickup line, you're gonna hit the
this.
same
Like, they think that they can give me
parents,
questions to ask, and I
grandparents.
said,
Yeah.
that's not how this works. It's not like, and mostly only people want to come if something upsets them. So I have asked a lot of people, okay, that we put them in the school mailboxes. I'd be happy to, because
That'd be a great
I think
idea,
there's
yeah.
like 80, would there say be 80 people at Neshabie, or maybe more?
Yeah.
Okay, so sort of a personal invite.
I would do the other schools.
Absolutely. Okay.
It's a great idea.
So,
And we could put, if they, I mean, I'm okay, I might not know the input that you can put on it for Neshabie to ask me. They could
Great idea.
ask me, and I would do my best to explain how, I mean, I've only done the one working session, but what, to my ability, what it is. You know, that
Sure.
you go, you listen, and then they break up, and you work in a group.
awesome. So we can put ambassador names for each school, and then people could reference those ambassadors, or we could drive them through Let's Talk if they have a question, you know, about it, or give us an email and someone can reach out. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. So that'll be one initiative for staff, right, is what we're saying.
yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay, so you got that, Charlene. We're gonna jam on that. Because they haven't invited through email, but I agree. A lot of times when I work with Jean on certain communications elements, I'm like, I want a note, a flyer in a folder going to the parents, because every parent opens that, you know, that notebook or that folder at the end of every day.
You look at it and you scan it, but a lot of times with your emails, you just go, doot, 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 you know,
That's right.
so.
So maybe we do a similar initiative with families.
Not mine, Sue.
No.
Just say,
Yeah,
you
just
know
say
what I mean, but.
Right. Just want to clarify that.
You know what I'm saying.
I'm teasing.
If I
No,
go to
it's
my
just too much.
mailbox and
Yeah.
look, like, I'm thinking to myself sometimes, why am I even looking at this flyer of some conference I don't want to go to, whereas if it comes on my email, I don't even open it up.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so we'll definitely do that. And a lot of times what I like to do is kill two birds with one stone. So if we have our date for our focus group as well, we can include that. You know, if you can't make it to one of our Wednesday working sessions, we are organizing, you know, a focus group on X date where we'll be discussing A, B, C, and D.
I would explain to them, and I would probably ask you if I wasn't, that it is more that you are part of it, not that people are
Observe it.
telling you what it is and then you reach and ask a question or your opinion. It's more that you're actually part of it.
Okay, emphasize, got it.
If they asked me, that was what I didn't understand when I first.
I didn't understand it either, so we're good to go.
Yeah, we're sort of, it's real time here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're just,
She keeps changing it up on me.
yeah. Well, you know, I ebb and flow, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, staff flyer inviting to working session and explaining the working session.
Plus the walking by the line of cars.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's
pretty
right.
cool.
That's right.
Just be
Everyone's gonna
careful.
be like, oh no, here comes Derek, and put up your window.
By a car door.
Yeah, don't slip on the ice, Derek.
All right, I'll carry a stick. I got this.
I'm gonna get you a safety vest. People are crazy in that line.
Okay, so Derek's gonna shoot for pickup.
Taking your own life.
So how will I get those materials?
So I'll work with Jean.
Okay.
To get them printed, typically what I do is we put them together, and then they get printed, and then they can either get dropped at a school, because there's inter-office mail, so they can either get dropped at a school that you visit frequently, like the high school, or you can go pick them up at the.
I could pick them up at their office.
Yeah, she'll just,
Either way,
We'll
just
print them out. Awesome. Okay, so we will follow up with that.
Obvious, but it's color.
Colors, no, it's not obvious, honestly.
color, yeah.
So
Color
color
paper?
paper.
Color paper.
Makes a difference.
Okay.
And do you want us to put them on like the informational bulletin board in the hall? That
Yeah.
parents-
Yeah. Although they'll get lost. But also, I think for you, hanging them by the copier, putting them in the bathrooms, places where people
I love
can.
the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good idea.
Never reads in the bathroom.
Tape them up in the bathroom.
Okay, so,
That's what staff told me as I went around is, when they have that.
The ones that they had me hang in our building, only tissue in the toilet. You had to
Right,
buy
that's
every
right.
single one.
Yeah.
okay. And then, so are we thinking, so I think, are we in agreement that we will invite people to the working sessions and sort of focus on that, right? And then maybe we do one organized focus group, maybe post-architectural review, where we can really dig into that a little bit. Because I feel like that's sort of the next, what do you guys think?
I think that'll bring a lot of folks.
And that's what we want. We want a lot of folks, right? When is that scheduled for?
I don't have that answer right now.
Okay. So maybe we don't pick a date right now, but that we sort of put that in our back pocket. Once we have a date for the architectural review, then we'll set a date for maybe a focus group where we can dig in a little bit and really start to understand what we already know is gonna come to the top, which is how is it gonna sort of, transform the school as a whole, or the district union as a whole, if we ended up, having a centralized middle school here. Okay. So over the break, Jean did move forward with a timeline that was professionally
Visual, yeah.
designed.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it?
Which, what I'm gonna do is I'll walk around just quickly, so has it?
They have it.
We have it.
You guys have it?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen it, the ambassador?
No, because it hasn't gone out yet.
Right, it's tough. No, so basically,
It's
I worked, it's not at all. I worked with Jean, I asked her to just basically lay out every single thing that's come to fruition since
The merger.
the merger, since 2016. So and sort of what that set in motion, and the changes and the decisions that have been made based on that, and how that has sort of brought equity to the school, safety to the school, and sort of helped us to position ourselves in that academic excellence area. And it's actually pretty amazing when you look at it. So when someone says, well, when you don't see the full picture, it's sometimes hard to understand, where we started and where we are and how we got there. This starts to sort of tie those, connect those dots for people. So I think that it's gonna be a useful tool when we start to explain, sort of the changes that we're making, why we're making them, and, what that merger put into motion for us as a union, as a district. So I'll just give you guys a sneak preview after maybe, so you can sort of see, but it is an exciting, I know Jean shared with staff just the bulleted version, because I was on that email.
Oh.
But, yeah, but, when it's in layout and it's, it's a little bit more,
I think from the group that I was in, one of the things I thought about that is that then if you're showing that, then it shows it more of a factual thing. And if you're saying it, it sounds like it's your opinion. Do you see what I mean? Like we did this because,
Yep.
but it explains it. Some of the decisions and why you can show it to them, and then you're more explaining it.
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I always say it's really hard to take the emotion out of communications as a whole. I mean, we experience it every day, and And that's sort of the tricky part of communication. How do you take the emotion out of it? It's like when it becomes factual, it sort of strips the emotion, which is what we're always looking to try and accomplish in high emotional things, like changing changing the layout of the district. So that's really good to know. And I think that now we gotta just make sure that we get it out there and leverage it and show families and help people understand the bigger picture.
I think we should also use that every time we do any communication with visuals. Just always have that there to catch catch people up if it's
Right.
the first time they're seeing it. And I just think that it'll be really helpful for what you were saying. And I don't think it should be a one-time
And we should
thing.
really
It
update
should
it
just-
each year.
Yeah, exactly. It just constantly gets updated.
When we have our budget meeting, I'd
Pull it out.
stand at the door and hand one out to everybody coming in,
Yeah.
like a
You're getting into a role of
like a
it.
program. Yeah.
There's that guy again.
There's
hanging
that guy.
stuff
Should
out.
also put it up on
The song and dance man.
Yeah, because that would be really good visual for people to see.
That's really quite helpful.
But something that they would
It's impressive.
fold up and take back home with them and look at later too, and think about it.
In the budget, and we had sort of, pocketed the budget meeting. When is the budget meeting? Is that the 26th? Is that the
Yeah.
26th?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. And are we feeling like as a board we need to do anything?
Lots of
Yeah.
communications.
Yeah, okay, so that's what we're gonna sort of, do we wanna talk it all as a group, or do you wanna talk offline, Jean, and then discuss as a group, or how do you?
Why don't you and I have a conversation? This meeting, this board will probably have a deeper conversation at
Okay.
their first meeting in February.
Okay,
Because that's when they really need to plan it all out. We have a PEG TV planned for February. Lee will be writing an article.
Okay.
I gave highlights. It's not a huge difference in the budget this year, so I gave highlights to the faculty by email, but didn't go into a lot of, actually, I don't even know if you've gotten that yet, because it's in the newsletter. Did the newsletter go out?
I remember the.
Okay, maybe I did it by email. So,
okay, all right. And then the other thing, and this is where, honestly, if we do wanna break out for a little bit, because we have about a half hour, what I really wanted to start to get to the root of today is I had a while back mentioned to you guys that I wanted to start to blow out this spreadsheet, because I love spreadsheets. And it sort of looks at the problem, right, which is the message. So the one I put in here, I'm just calling it the problem. It's really that key message that we need to drill into. So, for example, as we move forward with a conceptual architectural review to determine high-level costs for an enhanced middle school at OUHS, the board needs to have full transparency of the process with community members and stakeholders. So that's our problem. Now, the key challenges might be lack of consistent communication, distrust among school and community based on recent consolidation. Then we look at key messages. So, what do we want to sort of push out to the community? And then communication tactics. So, and that's where I'll sort of lead that conversation. But what I think would be helpful as a group is to start to identify those key areas of concern that we want to start messaging against. So it might be budget, it might be architectural exploration, it might be, I don't know, I mean, I think that, so I really want to identify what those key things are that we need to sort of address head on as a board, because that's going to help with our communications planning and how we really engage, our ambassadors and our key stakeholders. Does that make sense? So I want to understand what you guys feel. I mean, one example could be, what Becky was talking about, just the change in the subsidies, for pre-K. I mean, that's something that's happening in real time right now, where someone might come here and say, why are you doing that? And we have, so we need to dig into that a little bit and get ahead of it, right? So I want to try and sort of identify some high level, so we can do it as a group, we can break out. I mean, what do you guys think would be helpful? Because then what we need to start doing is developing And that's where I can start to come in, is some of those key messages and how we want to start disseminating that information to people. So do you want to do it as a group?
I'd like to do this group.
Group? Okay. So, I've named two. One is the architectural review. The other one is subsidiary. The other would probably be the budget. What are some other, yes?
I think the biggest one is, besides the money part, is probably going to be really making sure parents feel comfortable that we've created a separate experience for the 5th through 7th graders.
Right,
The 5th,
so-
6th graders especially aren't, existing as high schoolers. I think staying ahead of that is key. That the architecture and the planning around that we're actually going to help improve the 7th, 8th grade at the same time to be more of a separate experience.
Which is why we sort of tried to call it an enhanced middle
Yeah,
school as opposed to just
exactly.
consolidated, but
Yep.
yes, okay.
That we're not creating a problem, we're actually solving something, which is the 7th, 8th grade too.
We also need to get ahead of the fact that if we take the 5th and 6th graders out of the elementary schools.
Yeah, no, that's the next thing,
that
exactly.
we
Yep.
have a plan, or that we
Yep.
are coming up with a plan of what we're going to do with
How
our
it
other.
impacts the-
Yep.
How it impacts our elementary schools.
Yep.
Okay. Money.
With respect to the architectural part of that, I know we allocated funds to be used for that, but have we done anything at all, Jean, beyond that? Has there been any scope or ideas or anything that's been presented to anybody to architecturally to think about?
Yes, the architects have started, wait a second, there are two different things going on. The architects have started meeting with Jim around the front entrance of the high school.
Right.
I think Brenda has talked to the architects about the middle school request, and I'm not sure, I'm not aware that as of yet, there have been any meetings around scope, et cetera.
What about, and that actually triggers another thing, Jean, I know when you guys approved the funding for the entryway for the high school, we didn't really do, I don't know how we informed the public about that other than just
We-
word of mouth.
Yeah,
Haven't.
we
Right.
haven't really.
So to me, that's another piece, I know we touched on it briefly, but that's something else that we should probably be getting ahead of, right? Because people wanna understand that, what that means, and really what it comes down to is safety. I mean, that's, I've always
Well,
said.
it's a maintenance
Well, it's
issue
also
too.
a
I
maintenance,
mean, you saw it. You walk in there on a rainy day and you're still in the rain until you actually walk into the double doors.
True, but in your own, I mean, even think about your own house though, right? If there's an eminent, you can swallow, I mean, if it looks one way versus it's a safety issue, it's a very different message. But I agree, we have to keep up on the maintenance, but it also helps secure, that front entrance and how it drives traffic and where
Oh,
people are
sure.
checking, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Where people are checking
Yeah.
in and how they're sort of, experiencing.
But it's definitely also an aesthetic and
Right, it's
I
more
don't think we
aesthetic
can
than
ignore
anything.
that.
Yeah.
That
Definitely not.
it's falling apart on the outside. I mean, it's been a long time eyesore for a
Right.
long time.
Right,
And it's the first thing you see, is how
Right.
you enter the school.
right. It's sort of twofold, I guess, is where I'm going with that, though. We want to sort of.
Is there a timeline on that at this point?
Yes, the intention is that we start construction this summer.
Yes, but we don't have the architectural plans finalized yet.
Right.
So I think that we might want to wait until we have something visual, maybe,
Right.
Right.
to
And
like,
do a-
be like, here it
And do a focus
is, here's
group on that?
I don't think you need a focus
Or
group. I think you
presentation.
just need to, like, if Lee could do
You
an
don't
Yeah,
have enough
article.
money to
Exactly.
be
Right.
creative on it.
Yeah.
Once we have a visual.
I think we have a visual, and then we
Then-
even if Jim presents it to
Yeah.
the public, because I think it would be good for him to do that.
Yeah.
In the article,
Mhm.
and I think that's how we push that out.
So
Makes sense.
Jim's present, so once we have some plans, then we can sort of get a date for Jim to present that, and then that's what we push out to the community. Is that what I hear you saying?
Mhm.
Okay, okay.
I think
Yeah, I
it would
think-
be presented here.
Yeah.
We
Yeah, it'd be
invite
presented
people to
here,
it.
but yeah.
Right, oh, totally, totally.
Yep.
Or,
Okay.
or presented as part of the annual meeting.
Could be done there too.
Okay.
We'd have it by then?
Well, it could be both,
I
too,
hope
I would
so.
hope so.
We hope
That
so,
would be.
yeah, because otherwise we're not gonna be able to do information if we don't have a plan so it can be bid, it needs to be bid.
Right, right.
Is it the same company that's dealing with
It had to go,
out to bid?
yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's not.
I put it in the hands of Brenda.
Yeah.
I don't know your answers tonight, I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
I wasn't,
No, it's, no, you know what?
I haven't
just-
gotten an update.
Just
Yeah,
curious.
no, it's just things to have in the back of our minds so that they don't sneak up on us and then we're like, oh, you know. Plus, I like to, like you guys are discussing, from a communication standpoint, I like to piece it all together, you know, so how it all sort of fits chronologically, together. That's how my mind works. So it's helpful just to understand the bigger picture, all the things that are happening in tandem, so that we can sort of effectively lay that out for people.
Yep.
And I also don't, you know, especially as we start to get more in the community, I don't want you guys to get caught off guard, right? I mean,
Like I am right now.
This is really, this is
What?
actually
Yes.
perfect, because, yes. But, you know, we need to have a good understanding of all the moving parts, especially, you know, anything that's gonna impact change. So that's why it's helpful just to,
Well, maybe once we know that the plans are done, we present it as soon as possible, whether that it's a board meeting or whether that it's the annual meeting. We should do that sooner
Yeah.
rather than later.
I sort of feel like it's all, honestly, all of the
Okay.
above.
Okay.
And that's what I want us to get into the habit of. We're gonna hit all sorts of different people, so we should plan. And that's where, like, the dissemination comes in. What does that look like? We're gonna hit people here, we're gonna hit people there, we're gonna hit people. We're not gonna just have one meeting where either people, you know, we hit it or not. I think it's helpful so those are all really great ideas, Lori, and I think we do it all, collaboratively.
Are we talking about which thing right now?
Right now, we're talking about front entrance.
Okay.
Solely front entrance. But what I'm saying is it would be helpful for Jim to, I was even thinking about, when are town meetings? March?
March.
First Tuesday.
First Tuesday in March,
First Tuesday in March.
or Monday night.
Yeah, so I think we should start reaching out, when do they, when can you start reaching out to get on to be able to speak at those?
You don't
Depends
have
on your
to.
town.
Yeah, you don't have to, right? I did, because I wasn't part of the town.
Sudbury doesn't, Whiting doesn't, they can just speak.
Gotcha. Okay, so anyways, I think we should all mark those and make sure we have a presence at the town meetings and definitely.
You might want to join the discussion in a couple weeks about all of that, because that's when we're going to map out.
Great. Yeah, I
Unless you
think
do
that
it
was a big learning opportunity last year.
And the communities have said that they really miss hearing from the schools at those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying to Jean, and I don't know if I said it as a full group, and I know I've reinforced it a lot, but the disconnect, when everything consolidated and things changed, and then it just had such an impact on how we engaged, you know, with the community as a whole. So it's kind of like learning as we go. But, okay, so that's great. Yes, I do want to be a part of that, and I do think that it's going to be important. Is there anything else, we had said, the pre-K?
Lee was here for that discussion. Do you think she'll cover that in an article?
What? Cover what?
The pre-K
Subsidiaries.
subsidy
I don't know if
issue?
she will or not. I'll follow up with her.
Yeah, because she may already be covering that.
Okay.
I don't think she was aware of it before.
I don't think so either.
Are we talking generally about all communications, or are we going back to the things we want to stay ahead of
Things
with
we
the
wanna
middle
stay ahead
school?
of.
Or
Oh, no,
stay,
all.
anything we
So
want to
these
stay
are
ahead?
anything that could
Okay.
really, that we could get behind, that could come back to the board as community concern, or, you know, something that we want to be able, you know, we also want to be able to position ourselves as a resource of information, right? Not just, you know, it's an opportunity to be you know, sort of the thought leaders in this space.
Well,
as you guys are.
I guess, I feel like some of the conversations that keep coming up for me, and it's often with former school board members out there, is our move to policy governance. And I don't know if there's something we can
Yeah.
put forward to educate the community about the way we govern, which.
Think about how when we all got on the board, we didn't like policy governance either.
And so, think about the conversation. I mean, the regular public, they don't seem too upset. It's
Right.
the former board members. Oh my gosh.
I remember we said we never would do that when we started this board.
Did we end up reaching out to, former, okay.
We have a
So-
list now, though.
Awesome. So we did put that in motion. You know, I do think it's important to engage former board members because they're obviously voices within
They
the-
should come here on these third Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is what we were gonna do, is invite them.
We're
So
gonna
let's-
invite them.
Let's make that a priority for, since we have a full month until the next meeting, now's a perfect time to just
Get a formal invitation to
get a
them?
formal invitation. You know, it was discussed
Be
as board
interesting.
that there was some, you know, that it would be healthy to have a conversation around policy elements or whatever, you know, so that.
Sorry. So at our next meeting on February 19th, when we get together as task force, is our plan to do all of the communication stuff that we're going to do for town meetings?
No, I suggest you do that February 4th.
Okay. All right.
At least brainstorm that February 4th.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
it's too late February 19th.
All right.
Yes, and then, well, so for the next meeting, what I just wanna start wrapping my head around some of what we're discussing now. You know, and what I'm realizing is now that we have a plan for enhanced middle school, when we're talking about communication around enhanced middle school, it's kinda helpful to have everybody together talking about that. And, you know, there's not as much of a need for a breakout session in that arena right now. So our breakout sessions, we're still gonna have them, but they might just look differently. They might be around, you know, the focus group initiative or, you know, board engagement. I don't know, I gotta sort of regroup on that, because what I'm feeling like is people go to the enhanced middle school group, it's very lively and like everybody wants to participate in that, and then there's like two people talking about board engagement, we don't really do anything because we just keep talking about the same thing. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's gotta shift a little bit, so that we're all equally excited about what we're talking about. And we're, you know, so I gotta regroup in that. And that's why tonight, I just wanted to really dig into those key things that we can really work to communicate with the community and how we can get to people and invite them here.
So when we talk about the enhanced middle school, that discussion happens after the building suggestion comes, right? Is that right?
So,
Planning?
Right.
Okay.
I think so. Once you have something really to talk about next.
Correct. And I also remember that that's something put out that's a future, like this is not something in 3 years, this is not. So I'm gonna connect back with what the public might wanna talk about as well.
Perfect.
And, just the subsidy issue that just got brought up with pre-K, I had a much larger discussion about the needs of pre-K and the 10-hour minimum of time that students are expected, and that's what's supported. If we're talking about futures around middle school, why aren't we talking about future support of our beginning learners and invite our legislators and have that be a major event when they get some information about what's happening? Because, you know, our students don't vote, but someone is not acknowledging, we can't have, I'll speak as the literacy person, a goal of reading by grade 2 without a robust, and that's just not on this board, I'm talking about the state, you know, what is our shift in the future to take care of our youngest members of the community? So I'd love to see that conversation, and I know you have parents here for that.
Yeah.
That belongs in the room, but if we're talking about middle school, I want to talk about, what about before they're, you know.
No, and that's what, I guess that's what I'm saying from a chronological communication standpoint, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to understand, you know, what we're doing to invest here so that we can, you know, it's all interconnected.
It is, and that's an activism kind of connection, because I think it's much bigger than the people in this room.
Right.
Sorry, I missed their answer, and I'm hoping that they will come back with information. But that was a pretty feisty conversation I found myself in. It was born out of minimum time and all of those pieces.
Sure. Yeah, so maybe when we're structuring our focus group around that, we can definitely, you know. And again, I think that if we continue to find ways to engage with people, through surveys or through Facebook, you know, it's just another outlet for people. And, you know, to your point, from a subsidy standpoint, it might be helpful just to say, maybe it's an update to families and say, you know, the legislature, they were here tonight, you know, they're gonna be digging into that a little bit more because it was a change that came pretty quickly and out of, you know, I don't know if you wanna say, out of whatever the words are, and if you're concerned or if this is something that impacts you, talk to us through Let's Talk so that we can, you know, make sure that your voice is heard, right? I mean, it's just acknowledging it. So I think, Jean, that's something that we should probably get out sooner than later. Like, you know, just to acknowledge it, even as a follow-up to the conversations that happened this evening, you know, with the legislators. I don't know if you guys agree, but I do think that it's something that we can certainly get ahead of.
I'm concerned that the things we've talked about may be too complex a message. We've got 25 different little topics here, and we need to focus on 2 or 3 things and
Yeah.
give a website, give handouts for the other issues. But to pull off all of these ideas would probably be unrealistic, and the people are not going to read them anyway.
Yeah, well, just so you know, Bill, you're right. I mean, you're right in saying that. This is really just to help organize sort of what that chronological plan looks like. So it's not like, here's a bunch of information for everybody. It's more, how do we prioritize so the subsidies, that's eminent. I mean, that's something we gotta address pretty quickly, and we gotta figure out how to make sure that people are aware of it. Inviting people to the Wednesday meetings and getting that word out, that's another thing that we're gonna really focus on right away. Enhanced middle school is sort of down the road because we don't even have a date for that yet, so it's just something in the back of our minds, but it's something we need to dig into and maybe plan around a little bit for the future.
You also want to keep that as a live conversation topic, so it doesn't like turn up again in another 3 or 4 months and people go, when did you ever talk about that?
That's exactly right. So it's more, you're right, you have to be very delicate about it, but I just want to make sure that it's on all of our radars so that if someone comes up to one of us, you know, or one of you, I should say, not me, and says, you know, what's this about X? We can say, well, you know, it's not really that, we understand why you're concerned about that, but we're not even in the plan, you know, it's likely gonna happen X date, and, you know, it's on our radar, but it's not something that we're really overly concerned about right now. But, I'm just trying to have an understanding of what some of the things are that you guys wanna focus on, that we need to be aware of as a group, so that when we're planning and talking and engaging, you know, what does that look like for us collectively? I think that that's important. And, you know, to get input on, okay, there's this, but what are the layers to that, and how do we make sure that we're, you know, sort of understanding all of those layers?
I think the only other thing that I'd like to put on that list is that although we're not feeling it right now, declining enrollment throughout the state is happening. And how will that affect us? If there's going to be a 30% decline in Rutland County, which is us, how does that affect us in a few years? What does that look like?
Yep.
Look at your birth statistics phone.
Yep.
I know. So.
School districts have been done anything about that, like somehow made their town look like, hey, move here? I don't know, I'm just thinking.
Right, no, right.
Have they ever worked with the town and
Right now, Chittenden and Mendon just developed a brochure about why Barstow School, and they're giving it to recruiters at the hospital,
that's what I just always went, I know.
realtors to put in a packet.
I'm just wondering if the way, because, people always say, we come here because we love the school, and thinking, well, where did you hear that from? And I know, like, I've heard in Killington, it has gone way up since they had the, what do you call it, you know, the big ski race, the,
Oh, yeah.
World Cup.
Yep.
They've had this, I've heard this several times, big increase in their little school, because people came here, they saw it advertised, they saw, look at this is Killington, and now the little school doesn't have enough room. Somebody told me it's gone up like their enrollment 25%.
Wow.
And if you look at the real estate, or whether there was an article, it is selling, like, things aren't even on the market very long. There are certain properties, so. So I'm just wondering, you know, when
If
you
there's
say
some-
it's going to decline, is there anything that you can do about it?
Right.
Instead of just sitting and watching it?
There's
Well, and I
childcare.
think that's what I'm, you know, that all goes hand in hand, absolutely. So we need to be on, that needs to be on our radar, that needs to be on the back of our mind.
Well, that, and do we want to do a similar campaign? See, and this is something we talked about, even when we did the survey and we talked about sort of what people would be open to, how we can make this district better, right? The union, and ultimately the district, because it's middle school, well, it would be middle school and high school at that point. Would be to have this, I mean, research shows that, you know, well, some research, right, Bill? Don't worry, I see ya. But, you know, to have an enhanced middle school that actually focuses on the needs of middle school students. So that was something that we felt would benefit. So how do we, you know, sort of take the changes and things that may be out of our control, like decline in enrollment, but actually do something that's gonna benefit everybody as a whole and draw people here, you know, because we're investing in, you know, the future of our students. So, you know, that is something that we had talked about is leveraging in the future.
And also, thinking about Laura, like what Laura was saying about the early childhood, and I'm in that, I'm all in that, but the three of us, that it's usually young families that are looking, like I remember years ago when we moved here, we were only gonna stay here for a little bit. And then our son that's 30 now, is 6 months old, but then he went to school and like, oh, well, it's really good. So we're like, okay, well, we'll stay here. And then it just kept being like that. And we're thinking, well, should we move if they're happy? Why would we do that? So I just think that when we come here and then when we started, we were like, well, this is great. So, but it's the young couples and the families that you finally want to have the great early childhood and all that. I'm just thinking, you know, that's what you're most interested in. What is their book groups? Are there little, you know, story times? Are there this? Is there a preschool? Can we come and look? Those are the parents that walk through the school that are so excited. They are. It's the preschool parents, and they're all really happy, and their families are young, and just saying that just seems, you know, I'm actually excited to see some of the new families that have moved. So, like where I get my hair done, there's the people that work there's a whole bunch of them that have moved here, and their kids are starting to come here, and so.
Well, and to that
Other end
point,
of it.
it's been hard because I think I spoke to Jean about this a while back. You know, before public schools, it was in your town, that's where you went. You sort of, you know, but now public schools need to sort of position themselves more like private, right? You know, where you actually have a button that says visit us and take a tour, or, you know, so it's sort of, and Jean and I have had those conversations. There was a lot of talk about updating the website, and we need to get on that. I started to dive into it a little bit, and it was not familiar to me, and then Melinda got busy and we got busy, but it is on the radar, and you're right. I think that sort of making it easier for people to come visit, inviting them to do that. But it's something as a board you have to decide, is it, you know, do you want to campaign that out a little bit? Do you want to take the lead, or you know, is it somebody else within administration that does that? I don't know. You know what I mean? So, but maybe it is worth sort of brainstorming a little bit and trying to identify those things and set them apart and what would make someone want to come, you know, here, ultimately. So, I know other boards are exploring it, right? I mean, Barstow definitely is, as a board, taking the lead on that. So we have to decide if it's something they can do.
Concern from families about our district.
Because of the test scores on the website.
Yes, when you look at a house and you go down and it says, what's that called, grade school?
Yeah.
Because we were looking to move,
It's awful, and the
Yeah, Zillow
realtors,
is
yeah.
But I tried to look at, I actually looked up where it came from, and it's kinda,
I know, but
yeah.
I mean, this is a big home that's really fit for a family, children in the village of Pittsford, and that has come up more than once.
Yeah, it's called is it called grade school rating? I don't know what it is, but we've looked at, and Zillow will send you like 10 homes and where you've been searching, and if you go all the way down, then it has the school, and then it will say what your rating is, and like.
There's no idea how they come up with
And
that.
ours went up a point, but like Killington has like 9 out of 10. And like I said, I actually went on the internet and said, what is this grade? Where did it come from? How did they come up with this score of something out of 10? So.
Okay, well, maybe I can work with you to maybe dig into that a little bit, and there is an opportunity to message against that, you know, in a way, like, you know, I don't know what that looks like yet, but, you know, to openly say, maybe you've seen this. I was laughing because I looked at my house on Zillow or whatever, and I asked my friend who's a realtor, hey, can I trust that Zestimate? And he goes, do you believe in Santa? And I went, I guess not. So, you know, you're right, there are platforms now that can position our houses, you know, in our schools and our districts that are out of our control. So we have to maybe look at it.
Well, that's where you want to control your brand. I mean,
Right,
do you have a
exactly.
brand, and so what is it?
That's right.
And to, you know, we can recognize the deficits that need to be addressed, where are the weaknesses?
Right.
And, you know, that there's some we can work on. But then flip it and say, what are the strengths, and get that out there.
Absolutely.
So
So maybe that's something we can dig into a little bit as a board, you know, what are our strengths and how do we sort of position that a little bit? I think that could be useful, as a whole. All right.
Yeah. So,
I
are you
think,
good?
yes, and so we will definitely break out next group, or next meeting. And I'm gonna have it mapped out and, you know, sort of what we can dig into and sort of start to, communicate around. And with that said, Derek, so Jean's gonna reach out to Neshbe principal.
I already did, all the
Oh,
principals.
She's so on it. All right,
Yeah,
and then.
but you and
so-
I have to talk about what is the message that is going out, so
Yeah.
Okay.
that won't happen till early next week.
So talking about our next meeting with Allison is actually during the week of vacation. So the first question to our board members is, who's going to be here?
Knowing that you have an annual meeting a week later, good, there's 2 of you.
All right, we got 2.
What
We got
week
3.
is you back?
February
That's the week.
19th.
Yeah, it's February 19th, it's the week of the 17th.
Well, you're meeting on February 4th, that's your regular first one.
Should be here.
Okay, well, some
I don't-
people, you
I
know,
don't go
they,
anywhere.
if kids go on vacation, I know, me neither, not during that time.
But it's all the
Um,
the third one is during vacation?
Yeah. Yeah.
That could
So-
impact.
So
our
that's the question as
ambassadors
to
too.
how that will, so, anybody know they're not going to be here? Okay,
I'm a maybe.
okay, all right, well, we still would have a quorum, so I think-
dictate.
I think we're gonna go ahead and have our meeting on the 19th, and whoever can make it, can make it. We'll go from there. Okay. Thank you very much for your help.
Yeah, no,
And-
so the deck got sent around, all the results from the, survey and stuff, you guys can dig into that a little bit. If you have any questions, let me know.
Okay.
And then I just wanna keep focusing on the work we can do offline. You know, outside of the meeting, so, okay.
Great, awesome, thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
coming tonight, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Board Let's Talk communication report, there hasn't been anything since last Wednesday. Annual board work plan review. Do we need to do anything there? I think we're our status quo. So our next board meeting is set for February 5th.
Wait,
Uh,
is that right?
I think it's
Fourth?
the 4th, actually.
It's February 4th, it's not.
Thank you. February 4th, and we're gonna be at Leicester that night. At
No,
6
it is the 5th,
Yeah.
Wednesday is the 5th.
The 5th
All right,
this Wednesday.
5th, all right. Let's figure it out. Okay, no, sorry.
But we are at
So,
Leicester.
Yes, we are at Leicester, February 5th. I do need to have you guys in executive session for a couple of minutes. It won't take long. If we could go to another room,
Yeah.
just so that she can pack up, and there won't be any
Do you want me there or not
decision. No, I don't think so. We'll probably be
I'll
good.
clean up in here.
There won't be any action, so we'll probably be in there for 5 minutes, maybe.